Have you ever had thoughts in your head, but you didn't really want to say them out loud? Or maybe you didn't feel it was safe to say them out loud? Or maybe you just didn't want to say them out loud because you didn't really believe the thoughts you were having? Well, that's kind of where I want us to go today. I'm just going to be very transparent and share kind of how I'm feeling and thinking, knowing that while I'm having these thoughts, I'm I may not really feel like I'm feeling, but it is drawing me into kind of another conversation within in my own head. In a way, we could retitle today's podcast as "Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People?" It's kind of a variation of the same topic. When I think about the word complicit, we talk about people being complicit when they just stand by and don't really do anything. And I've been thinking a lot about a couple of topics that have come up while I've been teaching a class using the television series The Chosen. For over a year now, we've been meeting 2 Sunday nights a month, going through the episodes. Starting next month, we're going to drop it back to a meeting just 1 Sunday night a month. And one of the reasons for that is because we've nearly caught up, and we want to slow down just a little bit because they're still filming the episodes that we want to watch next summer. So in this class, one of the things we keep seeing, especially when you're looking at seasons 3 and 4, we see where in this television series, and I know it's historical fiction, uh, they're portraying a lot of things as we know and understand them to be, but we do know that this is a piece of historical fiction in the way that they're doing it, and they're taking some liberties in making it interesting for us, adding some things that logically might be true to help the story move along. But what we see in this portrayal is that Jesus is repeatedly showing and teaching his disciples that some things just happen. There are bad things that happen, and there are good things that happen. And while God has the power to do anything and make anything happen, a lot of times God just doesn't intervene because there's really no need to. And sometimes that causes us some problems. Um, During the pandemic in 2020, I had several friends die in a very short period of time. I think in my church we had 12 people die in 2020, and that was upsetting, including the associate pastor of the church who got COVID and died within a period of 5 days from doing communion at church, although it was done by video because the church was closed for full congregation. But, she did the communion part of the service on video on Sunday, and then got sick with COVID, was hospitalized, and died all before the next Sunday happened. And when we're looking at that, it is kind of upsetting. And also about that time, I had some other thoughts that I haven't shared with too many people, but I'm just sharing exactly how I felt at that time. Uh, Donald Trump got COVID during that same time in 2020, and there still weren't meds, but there were some experimental things And so he was taken to the military hospital and was given these extra treatments that the regular person couldn't get. And Donald Trump did not die. And I remember thinking at that time, God, you got that one wrong. Reverend Vicky died. Donald Trump lived. And comparing these two people, there's just no comparison. And then now, fast forward now, 5 years later in the future, had Donald Trump died in 2020, think how much better our country and our world would be right now if that man had died 5 years ago. Do we really believe God has the power to do all things? If we look at the God in the Old Testament, the writings in the Old Testament tell the story of the people being bad and God allowing bad things to happen to them, like they get captured, things like that. And when they were good, God allowed them to go in and capture and kill other people. Well, if you've been paying attention to my podcast, you know that I don't believe the stories about God as presented in the Old Testament are how God really is and was. I do understand that the stories were written by the people who really thought that's the way God was. But I will tell you that I've heard so many of those Old Testament stories and what they thought of God so many times that some of that creeps into my own stinking thinking. And I'm thinking, it can't be the same God today that it was then. And I know it is. I know God is the same. God has not changed, but our understandings of God have changed. And what people thought when they were writing this stuff in the Old Testament wasn't the way God really was. And so I have to come to those thoughts that God doesn't intervene as much as the Bible would have us believe that God does. I'm thinking about people I know with cancer, people I know that have had strokes, people that I know that have died. And I wonder if God could intervene, why does God not intervene? When I see the political fall of the United States of America by these really, really horrible, corrupt, selfish people and what they've done and how people have been hurt, and when I look at how the country of Israel has wiped out, committing genocide right in front of the world's eyes, killing out the people of Gaza, the ones that weren't killed now are being starved to death. There's no way that's right. There's no way that's right. Do we really believe that God could intervene in that? We know that God doesn't really intervene as much as we think God should. Actually, in the way we pray sometimes is really not even logical to the way God um, works within the world. And why is that? You know, we've had this conversation before that we have God in a box, and God's not in the box. No matter what limitations or expectations we put on God, God's not contained in this box. No matter what your definition of God is, God is not in that box. And you almost can't even have the conversation we're having today without acknowledging that we're putting God in the box. I have put God in a box in my mind, and that's really the problem that I'm having right now. In my mind, I'm wanting God to interact and act and behave the way humans do. I want God to react and behave with human intellect, like with my human intellect. And God doesn't, because God's not in that box. That's what I want God to be, but God's not that. And so I have to think and know and understand, do I really believe God is all powerful and could do everything? Do I believe that God is really real? I know religion is man-made, but I also believe God is really real. I think what religion has made of God by putting God in all of these different boxes that religions have is problematic. But I still have problems when I see, especially, the horrible, horrible, horrible hurt perpetuated upon people, many of which are innocent. Some may be guilty, but we know God is a God of mercy and love and grace. So if we're not showing mercy and love and grace, even to criminals, that's kind of a problem. We also have to know that boundaries between countries and states and cities and farms and regions are human constructs. God doesn't recognize countries. God does not recognize political parties. Those are all human inventions. So on one level, I understand God's not getting involved with all our human crap. But when I see people being hurt, and I see people, the 12 people I know from my church who died in 2020 of COVID, while the most horrible president ever elected, who was elected twice, which I don't understand. I know some people that voted for that orange moron 3 times. I don't understand. I don't understand how anyone, I don't understand how he could get more than 10 votes. I really don't. Much less 49% of the votes that he got this last time, and Kamala Harris only got 48%. I kind of understand how that happens, because I know in our country there are racist people and there are sexist people. There are some people that would never vote for a woman no matter what. And there's some people that never vote for a black person no matter what. There are enough people that are in that no matter what category. She only got 48% of the vote. The orange tornado got 49%. If there were not people that were inherently racist and inherently sexist, should have been a slam dunk. There's no way human beings would vote for the orange turd again. There's just no way. There's just no way. So I don't understand that. So if God really could intervene because God is all powerful, then why didn't he? Donald Trump could have very easily have died of COVID in 2020. All these other people died. Why not Donald Trump? So if Donald Trump would have died in 2020, many people's lives would be better. So could God really have intervened in that situation? Well, if we believe this, then yes. Then why didn't he? Goes back to, the parallel conversations or questions people ask. Why does bad things happen to good people? And why does good things happen to bad people? And the answer is, I don't know. We could get a whole group of theologians in this room, and books and books and books have been written about why do good things happen to bad people and why do bad things happen to good people. In fact, I've written on that myself in my book here. Sometimes you have to stir the pot. We repeatedly have these questions. I really don't understand people holding a Bible in the air and wrapping themselves in a flag and saying they're a Christian and doing all these really, really horrible, horrible, horrible things. Jesus said, "A new command I give you, love your neighbor as yourself." In my class tonight, we watched season 4, episode 8 of The Chosen, in which Jesus is talking to his disciples in the house of Lazarus, and Shmuel and Yusuf, two of the Pharisees, were there, and he's giving to them the story about the sheeps and the goats, and they get to heaven, and uh, God will say to the sheep, "Remember when I was hungry and you took care of me? Remember when I was an immigrant trying to save my family and you let me into your community? Remember when I needed a little help? I needed some shoes, I needed some food, I needed some water, and you gave it to me?" And the people will say, "Well, God, when did I ever do that for you?" He says, "When you did it to some of these least people, the ones that the world rejects, you did that for me because I feel your generosity. I see that. I feel your love for them right here in me because you are doing for others. It's just like you're doing it for me. Welcome. Come on into heaven." Then he looks at goats, and I don't understand putting sheep and goats in these categories like that. It's kind of unfair to goats because goats can be rather funny and pleasant. Um, they can be kind of mean, maybe. So maybe that's what it is. And the goat says, "No, you can't come in. When I needed help, you didn't help me. When I just needed some food, you didn't give me any food. When I just needed some shoes, you didn't give me any shoes. When all I wanted was some water, you didn't give me water. When I tried to escape war and famine and joblessness in my country, and I came to your country for some help, you didn't let me in." Or when I came to your country and I just showed up for my immigration regular appointment, and you arrested me and sent me to a death camp in another country, they said, "Wait, God, I never did that to you. I didn't do that to you." And God would say, "Well, you see, here's what really happens. When you don't do that for these people that are rejected, you're rejecting me, because my commandment is to love all people, show mercy and grace and kindness to all people. And when you don't do that, you're rejecting them, you're rejecting me. So, bye. Get away, girl, bye. I don't know you. You're not one of my people if that's the way you treat people. So in my class tonight, we saw a depiction of Jesus having that conversation. And it was pretty powerful. So when we see the blatant hypocrisy of those in power all around us right now, and how they are goats, they're doing all these terrible things to people. And if we believe the story that Jesus told, when they die and try to get into heaven, it's going to be, excuse me, all these terrible things you did, you rejected those people, you rejected me, get on out of here. I know you not. I think that's pretty clear. But I go back to my original premise of this podcast. If God is all powerful and God could change these things, then why does God not change these things? And I know I'm trying to put God in the box of thinking and behaving like I do, using human elements. And I know that's not right. But I am a human. And I do interact and think and behave as a human. And so when I think about a God who is all powerful and all knowing and can change and influence people and outcomes and diseases, and then when it seems like God's not doing anything about it, then I'm thinking, did God just give up? Is God complicit? I'm just sharing with you exactly how I'm thinking and feeling. These are my human thoughts, because God won't stay in this box where I want God to be. Based on how I'm thinking, I'm putting my human constraints on God, and God's not in this box. God is much bigger than that box. A podcast not long ago, I actually got into this. Well, we just have to know and understand that we will never know and understand how God operates, thinks, and behaves. Clearly, God is immune to the same stimulus that we are not immune to. And that's very, very difficult in life today on planet Earth within the constructed human boundaries of the United States, within the human constructed boundaries of a state called Texas, which you guys know was Mexico first. We're living on Mexican land, which before that was Spanish land. And this part of Texas, Houston, which was French land. which was all land of Native American tribes. So, is God complicit? Sure seems that way, but that's probably not the right word. So, while it seems like God's complicit, God has all the power, but God's not doing nothing. Well, not exactly. But God's not doing stuff the way I want God to. So, in answer to my question, is God complicit? I would have to say no. I would have to say that God's thinking, planning, and behaviors do not lie in the human plane. And expecting them to be acted upon as if they were in the human plane is not possible. I think it's okay to be angry with God sometimes. Um, to hold those feelings and thoughts inside doesn't make any sense. If I'm angry with God and I try to pretend like I'm not, well, that's really stupid. The only thing is, by keeping it inside, I don't share it with you. And so you don't know that I'm having this issue. But there's a scripture say that um, there is no temptation that comes to you that is not common to other humans. So if I'm having these thoughts, being angry with God, uh, thinking, God, why don't you just do something? You know, some people get cancer, some people have strokes, some people die. Donald Trump didn't die when other people did. I'm not thinking about, I didn't say someone need to go out and kill him. He got a disease where a lot of people died. He didn't die. I went to bed one Sunday not long ago, and I woke up on Monday and found out that the Pope had died in his sleep. And I'm thinking, like, I know some people that, why can't I go to bed tonight and wake up and find, yeah, some of these really horrible people have died in their sleep. Hallelujah. We finally got victory and release. I know that's a terrible thing to think, and it's probably even worse to say it out loud, but I'm sharing what I'm thinking. I'm not talking about bad people doing bad things to people. I'm just talking about things that happen to all people. Some people die in their sleep. Some people got COVID and died. It sure feels like sometimes, in the plan, everything, God got it wrong. But God's not playing a game like checkers. You die, you die. Oh, you live, you die. No, that's not the way it is. Do I have the answer to why everything is? And can I tell you exactly how God thinks, acts, and behaves? No, I cannot. But neither can you. And I know some people that'll probably watch this and they'll want to argue with me about what I'm saying. Is I'm sharing my thoughts. You can't argue with my thoughts. I'm sharing my thoughts. You could go to a magic shop in New Orleans and get a whammy to put on me because you want my thoughts to change, but that doesn't work that way either. So I'm just sharing what I'm thinking. Many people probably have thoughts that they don't share with anyone, but as humans, one of the best and the worst things we have in our human experience is the ability to interact and share and communicate with each other. And where we fall down on that is in sharing how we're feeling. So, I tried to stay on topic here this evening. I think I did mostly. I bird walked a little bit. I could probably pull out several points in here to make multiple talks, but my main topic here was on, is God complicit? And while I really feel like God is complicit many times here in the last 5 years, no, complicit's not the right word. The right word is God operating in a different plane than I am? Yes. Is God operating in a different thinking than I'm even capable of? Yes. Am I ever really going to understand? No. So the next question is, so how am I going to survive without going completely cuckoo? I know my answer. I hope you have your answer. In fact, at my 11 o'clock church today, Reverend Dr. Candace Schultes preached and used a little passage from, I believe it was Micah, and that really tied it all together. She had several scriptures together for her message today, but tying it all together with some words from Micah were very important and really helped put it all together. Thank you for watching. This was kind of a weird topic for a podcast, but you know, a lot of times we think things and we keep it to ourselves. We don't say it out loud. Probably smarter sometimes not to say everything you're thinking, but I'm not alone in this. And so if you're thinking kind of the way I'm thinking here, just know that you're not alone. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast if you've made any connections or if you want to hear more from Words to Ponder.